Hey, there we go. Unmuted stuff. Uh, that's up. That's gone. All right. Rich and Luke episode 119. Except that Luke is not here this week. He is on vacation. So instead, I have Seven with me.
Hey, Rich. Thanks for having me on finally. Sorry about last week.
No, no, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I mean, I don't really. I mean, I don't feel the need to like. I guess introduce you in any way. You're pretty well known around the league. So
Yeah, I guess people that listen to SHL podcasts probably, I guess the newer people might not as much, but a lot of people that listen to SHL podcasts will consider me pretty familiar, consider the voice pretty familiar. Um, Good to be back doing something like this. It's something that I've wanted to get back doing more of. Been putting in a lot of work behind the scenes, but it's nice to get back into, I guess, like pure media creation again a little bit.
yeah, for sure. And actually, that was one of the things that I immediately thought of when bringing you on was like you have. And I don't know no expectation or pressure or anything like that. But like, is there any update on the? I know you and Luke had some kind of like plans in the works. I was curious if there's any kind of any update on that.
Uh, Official updates, no. It's still something that like we gathered some interested people to do the like there's like twice weekly like updates based around the sim, and we have people that are willing to do it, and we have a plan to get all of the data for that. Um, but Luke and I both have had the idea in the past, and when Luke brought it up again about a month and a half ago, um, I had recently had the thought again and had started doing the weekly indexes for the 3 stars, and I was like, oh hey, like this is lining up perfectly. I've also been thinking about this. Let's do it. Um, and Luke's like, great, let's aim to start in season 79. And I'm like, oh man. Because like I was about to move and I had a lot going on, and Luke was about to go on vacation. Um, so I think it's something that we're still looking at doing, but I had, um, among all the things that I get into, I am doing some uh, computational biology stuff for a couple um, papers being written, like academic papers, and that has eaten more of my screen time, my free screen time, than the SHL has recently. So,
Yeah, I can see how that might.
um, yeah, a little bit of like prioritizing what is what I want to be doing, but also what's going to be cool to get involved in. As that's getting slowing down a little bit, we should have the stuff that we're trying to do for the um, weekly podcasts up and running soon. It also kind of hamstrung getting the hockey talk face off plan going. So both of those are still in the works. They kind of got delayed by a season because we knew they were going to be difficult to get running in 79.
Yeah.
And then I guess those expectations were really quickly realized.
Yeah, yeah. That's also I really enjoy when you say Luke put a timeline on it like that because that's yeah, I he would do that. Mostly because
Well, I mean, it makes sense
no,
because
yeah,
like especially in like, and I've realized it doing like sim league stuff and projects and stuff on my own events team, hockey talk, awards team. Like you can bring something up and somebody and like people will get excited about it, and then um there needs to be like a drive and like a push from people to get it done. And like there's no shortage of ideas people
yeah,
in the sim league community, and not there's not really a shortage of people willing to do work in the sim league community, but there is a lack of like um almost project management
Hmm.
style um, people in the league, and part of that is I think because you see a lot of people that have time to put into the league are on the younger side.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so there's not a lot of people that have ever been in a spot where they have to manage a project outside of like a group project in school. So you're seeing a lot of people that are expecting to come in to like whatever you're trying to get done and be given something to do, and they buckle in and do it real quick. But not a lot of people that are out there laying out, hey, these are the things we need done. You do this, you do this. We'll have this by this point. And that's something that Kari and I both had to, I guess, get used to, and we like I have professional experience doing that, but we had to get used to like setting very clear, like explicit expectations of, hey, for awards, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna do it. This is when we want to have it by because of X, Y, Z, and laying all of that out has been helpful in, I guess, elevating anything from the awards perspective of show up, put in a ballot, go home, see you in 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so like to elevate things in the Sim League universe beyond how they currently are, you definitely need to be very not demanding, but very clear on what expectations are and what you're hoping to achieve. And so like Luke putting a timeline on what we're trying to do, it wasn't like a hard like, hey, do this or I'm not doing this with you, but very much a hey, this is what we should aim for. This is what we're going to tell people. To give like a specific target, both to help get people into that are interested in doing these little 15-minute episodes, but also to put some actual momentum into the idea instead of just letting it sit there and we kind of mull about it forever.
Yeah. And that's actually something that Luke and I have talked about. Not, I don't think on the air really ever before, because it's usually pretty. There's not a ton to talk about really, but um, like you said, the kind of project management side of getting things done in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Luke definitely has said that that's kind of something he tries to do a bit. I don't know if he's comfortable with it necessarily, but he's in a lot of places and recognizes that it kind of does need to
Yeah,
happen to get
and
things moving.
Luke's good about that. Jess is really good about that
Yeah, that makes sense.
from the HO side, but like getting the charity drive stuff going. That's very much a we can go to all these different sim leagues and say, hey, let's do a cross league drive, but at the same time, you need somebody and you need people driving. Hey, this is the window that we're doing it. This is like and laying it out so that it becomes more than just an idea. And those people from anywhere from singular departments like awards or the sim team to like the events team or these cross league initiatives, it's really valuable to realizing these things and making them a reality. Uh, and that's honestly probably my big advice for like when you have something that you want to see done or changed is like you have to put in some work and like just make it happen just out of persistence, like um say hey like this would be cool and this is how we do it and this is what I need people to do to get it done instead of just throwing out a suggestion or throwing out an idea and letting it drift around until somebody takes care of it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, look, there's somebody I don't see too often in here, Frenchie. um, so I have to. We have to talk about Carolina, because I'm not going to have you on here and we're not going to talk about Carolina.
Sure.
Um, and it's not so I don't. I'm not involved. Let's say I'm around
Yeah.
enough to kind of have a vague idea of what's happening. So I know enough to know that Carolina has a lot of rookies this year, and there were not a ton of expectations because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, what's going on in Carolina?
Um, Traditionally, we've struggled to have a elite season like you see out of Maine or Anchorage or Nevada or Vancouver, Newfoundland, QCC. These teams that explode and threaten to hit 100 points in a season, that we don't have those as regularly. Part of that is how I've always believed in how rosters should be built in the J. You get to that level of strength in your roster by having by by drifting away from 4 to 5 users, 4 to 5 players per class. Um, as soon as you start getting up into like 6, 7, 8, you're really you're notably weaker in one season, and then you're stronger in others because of the chemistry and the applied TPE for the season are a lot stronger. But it's always a rough sell and harder to engage in. It's just not fun for people to be on a team that's going through that. It's fun, 6 months from then, but the first 2 months are where the risk of losing people is the highest. And you want to get to I, the retention, or I guess the retention stabilizes once you hit like that second season. If they're around as new faces hit the second season, they're on their SHL team, they're in that locker room, they've been around for 2 months, and they're still engaged with the J team and getting there with their SHL team. That's when you're a lot more comfortable that like they fall into that, could have something come up and disappear at any point. Like there's I did the math, I think last year or sometime in the last year, there's a pretty consistent like 90 to 95% of a draft class is retained season to season after the first season, but the first season is way lower. Um, so, in the interest of maximizing that retention and kind of fulfilling the goal of putting as many people from Carolina into the SHL as possible, I really try to avoid seasons like this one. And seasons like, there's been a couple where there's been heavier rookie classes because it's not fun to sit there and watch your team have 10 wins on like the 12th sim day. um it also is just from an FHM standpoint, I don't really get dialed in and like get a team producing well until I'd say probably 3 to 6 sims in. And it was like that again this season. We were like 2-14 the first week, and then since then we've been above 500. Um, and that's a pretty regular occurrence for us, and not ideal, but not something I'm, I guess, aggressively concerned about. It's just a matter of being able to sell that to the people on the team that are looking at the standings and saying, "Oh, we're in like 7th in the conference. This sucks." And I'm like, "Yes, but we've won like 23 out of 40 games. Like we're doing fine." Um, so yeah, there's been a heavy rookie presence this season. We had couple thin classes back to back, and uh, had like a couple unfortunate IAs, so that like the start of this season, the only players we were bringing back were me, Drunken Teddy, Jove, uh, Stad, who's our 1C now. He's a second year player, and Joe Jeff, who's a second year player. So we had like 6 people, and just needed as many bodies as we could get. which we did a good job getting, and filled up the roster. And um, not really what I wanted to happen, but we had like 2/3 of the roster as rookies, and it got to a really entertaining spot where we had a high waiver claim, and um, the J is interesting because sometimes active like people show up as first gens, be super active in the Discord for a day or two, and then just don't get claimed by the top couple teams. And so I cheekily throw out claims on people when I don't expect to get them, and we landed AJ, and they've been great. But I was like, oh, we're at capacity, and I was like, hey, CK, can you call up my player for a couple weeks?
Oh, that was AJ. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
Because
that's who that was that had you
Yeah.
called up. That's funny.
So it was me and Teddy, and I think Stad was 1C on the line, and then Teddy, and then Jove and I were like the top pairing. I was playing out of position, and we got AJ, who would have been like our 16th active skater, and you can't bench actives in the J because we've had a lot of issues with that in the SMJHL for a various number of reasons, but um, you can't bench actives, and that's a positive thing. And I was allowed to 3 seasons ago when the league was at capacity, and we didn't have time to emergency expand. So like there was literally like 1 or 2 IA slots across the league, and there were new creates happening that were clearing waivers, and I went to HO and I was like, hey, can I? That was my Frazier's rookie season. I went to HO and I was like, hey, can I bench my player, sign these people until I can trade them for like to a different team to get them on like playing it on a roster and get them ice time, and did that like multiple times that season. But it was very explicit from HO, and I was fully understanding that this was a very unique circumstance, and I wasn't going to be able to do that ever again because it's in the end an unfair advantage to bench your player, bring in a first gen, and have like extra assets. So like, yeah, I shouldn't be able to break the rules and not dress my active player. And then the loophole to that is, hey, now that I'm a send down, CK can just call me up. They're not over the cap with my player up, and they can just scratch me up there. Which was a little cheeky, but I took like 50 games off, and then had CK, and then CK sent me back down once we had one player go IA. I was like, okay, now there's finally space for me. I'll go back down for the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I've I'm not at all really familiar with the other way or the ways that the other teams are run, but I do really admire the way you run Carolina. I think it's kind of the right way. That's what I'd say.
I appreciate that. I like to think so. I also know that not everybody's going to see the league the same way that I do, and
yeah, for sure.
You know, like there's going to be different ways that people think teams should be ran. And I wouldn't say it's explicitly the right way, and I think that there are other positive, successful ways to run teams in the J. It's just
I guess
the goals that I've settled on.
I should maybe alter the way I phrased it. Not that it's like, oh boy, not that it's the way that it should be done, but it's like, I don't now I've lost it. I had it in my head, now I've lost it.
Yeah,
not that other teams are doing it the wrong way, just that I think your approach is, it's great for the intentions behind it are very, very good, and like kind of
mm-hmm.
yeah, the way you should approach the league. Again, not that it's like wrong to do it otherwise, but
yeah, it's a very league positive way
Mhm.
to run a team.
Yep.
Is kind of the way I like to look at it, and it's like, yeah, it's, trying to make a competitive team and trying to um, win games, get, people have more fun when they're winning, and that's obviously a priority. But I and there's a lot of overlap in how different JGMs see the SMJHL, and I wouldn't say it's a unique goal, but I think that everybody's primary goal is slightly different. And with Carolina, like I was saying, it's very much how do we get as many first gens from creating a player to that player being in the SHL, and that's coming from, you know helping them stay engaged, helping them um, get invested in the community, get invested in the team, get invested in anything that they find interest in, um, and just converting as many players to the SHL and users into the community as possible.
Yep.
And the rest kind of will sort itself out from there. Generally, I'd like there to be a couple more trophies in the case, but sometimes you're unlucky, and sometimes you're worse than unlucky. Uh,
What so you had what is that? What does that put you at for rookies in this class in total?
uh, like as far as
The quantity.
on our
Yeah.
budget,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, I think it's 11. Let me check.
I think my head it was you drafted 9, I want to say. Is that right?
Drafted more, and then
Oh, that's right. There
some
was
were,
two, I think
yeah,
2 this
there
year.
were a couple like that weren't around and never signed.
Yep.
Um, Drafted 9 to the roster, then
Okay.
3 others that never signed, and then actually 10 to the roster, um, and then 3 that never signed, and then 2 on waivers, but 1 was like the last create of the season, and they hadn't logged back on since. So on the roster, there's 11 rookies, but 10, 9 are like viable to be drafted.
How many of those were first gen?
Uh, all of them but Canadice.
Okay. That's right. I do remember. Yep. Canada. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh
Uh, so Magic Gams, who's now IHFHO, CBX, the Luchard brothers, Quads, Silicon, and then AJ as the waiver, and they're all around and active. So that's positive, and I'm just hopeful that they'll stick with it for the next 2-3 seasons, because like I said, this season's not been the greatest, but there's very clear payoffs, even if it's like not intended for what I'm trying to do, but there's clear payoffs for them if they ride it out.
yep. Yep. And honestly, I guess for that many rookies, it seems I mean not that it was a good season, but like doesn't seem that bad. Like
Oh yeah, no, um from an if you map out like applied TPE to um points, and then especially applied TPE as like a average over the season, like their TPE week over week, you average that out. Like we exceeded expectations as far as points, and like the back 3 weeks of the season were great. It was just the first week that was a little rough,
hmm.
and by little it was a lot rough. But no, I think that it was a relatively successful season. We had a positive goal diff. We were above 500 for the last 3 weeks, and um, we were in a similar spot last season and pulled off an upset in the playoffs. And I know Tack and Fishy are not comfortable with the matchup that they have to now face.
Well, that's good. That's good. And that should project pretty well for next season. Then I would think. I mean, obviously you're still going to be a little bit stuck behind that 350 cap for all those players.
Yeah,
But it's still pretty good.
yeah. The 350 cap's actually not super detrimental.
Okay.
Looking at like we'll have say 8 to 10 actives stuck on that 350 cap. A couple rookies and a couple at 425. The 350 cap's really 75 TP per player, 8 players, and like they wouldn't even be at 425 anyway. But to say that like these players are like that I guess cap on TPs affecting things is like not super big. There's 75 times 8, like 600 TP when the top of the league is like 5,500, 5,300. It's like 10, you're at like 90% of TP.
Okay.
If the rest of your players are equal and you've got like 8 at the cap. So it's not like a super problematic spot to be in. And back in 54, it was like my second season in the league, we had a similar roster because there just weren't a lot of draft picks that season for Carolina. We ended up with like 5, 6 free agents plus a pretty big draft class. And the first season was rough, and then the second season we had like half the roster at the 350 cap and won the cup anyway.
And if the players this season are able to kind of see the progression, it shouldn't be too bad getting buy-in from them.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's super easy to like. You can frame it out pretty easily. Like there's been teams that have had big classes together like that recently. Like QCC for one, Maine had one like that. You can point and say, hey, like this is their roster that won the cup. This is that big class, and this is what it looked like when they were all rookies. And it it's an easy sell. To some extent, it's just part of it is that the SHL requires a little bit of buy-in from anybody that's looking to, I guess, get invested. Like the timelines
Yeah.
for the J and for the SHL are long, and like a 2K player is 9 seasons, so like a year and a half. A rebuild is like a year long process. A J career is 8 months, and like those are I would say positive things for everybody that's in the league. That like they'll look at that and say, okay, I like that this takes a little bit of investment, but to people that haven't experienced the league before, they're going to look at that and say, some of them are going to look at that and say, oh, that's a little slow for my liking, and that's entirely fair.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, the ones that are looking for something like this, yeah, it's no problem. But yeah, it's for some people for sure it's going to be like a, I don't know, shock's not the right word, but it's going to be a realization of like, oh, this is maybe more than I wanted to
yeah,
invest
and
in.
like they'll get sold on it with like it's like, oh yeah, like be a pro career mode kind of things or MMO kind of things, but the time scale and how quickly you can progress
Yep.
in even like playing like WoW or Guild Wars or anything like a modern MMO still has much quicker progression to end game
Yeah.
than anything that's going on here. And any of like the single player career modes in sports games are entirely at your own pace, and you have a lot more agency over. Um, so this is very unique in that you don't have a lot of agency. There's not a lot that you can. There's a lot that you can do if you have free time that you want to put time into the league,
Yeah.
but there's not anything that you can do to accelerate your progression,
Yeah.
and that's definitely sometimes a sticking point for people.
Yeah, that's
Because
exactly what I was gonna say. It's like we're all at the same pace. There's no, yeah,
yeah,
yes, there are things you can do, but none of it's really gonna speed anything up.
yeah,
Just
like
make
there's
things easier down
always
the road.
yeah, there's always stuff that you can get involved in if you have like free time and you're enjoying this, there's like tons of different departments and jobs and content and no shortage of things. Like I've constantly joked that like I could easily like full time SHL 40 hours a week. Like there's enough out there to do.
Oh, for sure.
It's not gonna pay me my
Yeah,
salary,
yeah,
but you can definitely, if you have free time and want to do it, you can.
yep. So who are the I'm familiar with probably fewer than I should be. Being I'm not super active in there, but I am in the Carolina locker room. But I
Yeah.
am familiar with Gams.
Hmm.
AJ obviously because how can you have to be.
Yeah.
Um, he does not let you not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But who else? Who should we pay attention to in the draft?
Um, Obviously Canadice, but
Yeah,
he's not exactly draftable. The um, Bouchard brothers are, I think, going a little under the radar. I think that after a couple other um, recent like family combos in the J and the SHL just around the site, like you have Armstrong, Zip, and Cracker from last season, who were all brothers that didn't take off. You had the Latriel brothers and their dad from a couple seasons back that none of them are active. Um, there's for some reason the family ones have a lower hit rate, I think, than the. It's obviously a sample size issue, but they have a lot of fresh memories of people that are like, oh, like this is going to be seen as like a bigger risk, so they're going to fly under the radar for that regard. But the the two on Carolina and the one on Maine, it's two brothers and a cousin, and they came in knowing that they wouldn't necessarily get to all be on the same team, and weren't entirely put off by that. They got a little bit into the rivalry about things. Like they're not as um, bound at the hip as some others, and I think that they're um, not at all risky for the family side of things. Because
Mhm.
like for say like the three brothers last season and the Latrio brothers, you could kind of tell that they were all the interest was derived from a singular point. Um, so as soon as the driving family member lost the interest, it started to fade from everybody's mind. And with this, one of them being a cousin helps a little bit, but it doesn't feel like they're as um, reliant on each other to stay interested in things.
Sure, yeah.
Um, so I don't think it's an issue there. I think that um, there's still a question of like if they'll enjoy this long term, but I don't think it's a thing that you have to consider all three of them or any two of them together to really add to your scouting report, I guess. Um, and then CBX and uh, JMac are like Gams we know, but CBX and JMac are similar personalities. That's Arbwanger and Blake Hutchinson. They're both older, like established, like adults, um, but they're both on the clever end of things. Silicone is uh, pretty gifted academically. Uh, CBX puts in a lot of work outside the SHL and has to step away on occasion, but I think they're both. Um, and it's weird to evaluate people like this, but they feel like um, guys that'll be stable contributors. Like
Like the correct temperament for.
yeah, like they're not. Um, I won't throw names out, but there's guys that come through, and you're like, oh, I could see you being like something. I could like see a point where like a thread would go the wrong way, or like some words would be exchanged, or something wouldn't go your way, and like it would be pretty detrimental to your likeliness to stay around the league.
Hmm.
And this doesn't feel like that, and it doesn't feel on the other side like when you have high school and college age kids coming through, you see, okay, like you're enjoying this now, but it's either summer or like your class schedule is a specific way that you're able to have a good time and get invested with this. But like 1 or 2 months where like your schedule changes or you've got other things going on, like there's less with some of these guys now. It's a little less concern of if they're going to be as interested in things 4 months from now. You're a little bit more confident in that like the free time that they have now is going to be the free time that they have in 6 months.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Anybody else you want to hit on really quick before we jump something else?
No, we can go somewhere else. I think everybody else is pretty self-explanatory, but those are two sets of people that are quieter, like more under the radar people.
Yeah. All right. What about? Oh boy. Um, do you want to talk? So, do we want to do some like just general playoff stuff? I kind of want to
Yeah, we
hear
can.
what's going on with Montreal's trajectory. Um, it's
Sure.
obviously not immediate, but it feels pretty good. Um,
Yeah. No, it
just
definitely does.
a waiting game at this point, I think.
Yeah, like we're almost at capacity, like when you project out future rosters,
Mhm.
which is simultaneously a positive and a negative,
Mhm.
because like, or at least from my perspective, because I'm bringing the JGM perspective of
Yep.
like, hey, it's always great to add more people to the locker room to have more people on hand, get people engaged, get people excited. So it's and like we did it with LA back when Fuzz took over, but uh, I'm still not fully as I guess comfortable with just sitting back and waiting for things to develop because of my experience in the JV. Like that, you're always moving, you're always turning players over, you're always having to think about like 2 seasons out who's still going to be there, what picks you need, and you're always reloading. And once you hit this point in the SHL, you're not. You're just kind of waiting, and you're knocking out all your TP. Everybody's like active and engaged and talking in the locker room, but you're just kind of biding your time.
Mhm.
Um, and it's not a bad thing, but it's definitely um, a very weird feeling for me, and probably for other people that haven't been there before, been there frequently. Um, like the older people are like, okay, yeah, this is what to expect. Like Dan's been here before, Cal's been here before, Serp's been here before, like, and like yeah, we just gotta kind of ride it out. But um, on the trajectory side, it's something that I hope to uh, publish some Google Sheets for this month, but I've done projection mapping for the entire site
Oh,
um, out through like 5 seasons based on TPE earnings. Um, so like given what every user's done TPE wise, and their rate of earning, what that looks like for their player over the next 5 seasons, and like
okay.
the stuff that I have, like I can like manually edit to like, okay, this person I know they're gonna retire at this point, or this person, um, I know wants to go to free agency, or like it's a bit modular in that regard, but like you can see like the entire depth chart of every team 4 seasons out, 3 seasons out, 5 seasons out. And that was actually a huge thing in my mind, a huge thing when we were looking at bringing Tack in when he was looking for a sign and trade from Minnesota. Was I was able to go to him and say, hey, like this is where the league's at right now. If you without you leaving Minnesota, this is what each team is going to look like. This is who's competitive. This is where Montreal's at. If you sign with us, or if you sign with any of the other teams that you've told me you're interested in, this is what they'll look like. This is when they'll be the strongest. This is what the league will look like then. This is what, if you come to Montreal, this is what it's going to look like. This is where you are in the depth chart. This is what you'll be line 1 through here. This is when people are coming to join you. This is when we're being competitive. This is who's going to be contending with us when we're in our window. And it was in my mind, a really effective way to frame out, hey, this is, as at least regarding the on ice thing, which is only part of it. This is what I can reliably expect from what's going on. And it was, I think, season 80 and 81 were the window. Like the peak window, it might have been 81, 82. I don't remember.
I think 80, 81 makes sense to me looking at just the.
Yeah.
I guess I'm basing that. Well, maybe. I mean, 74, 75. I think 75 will be in their first season of regression then, right? Which is technically the peak, or are we looking at?
It would have been. I think 75 was the. It would have been the season that 75 was. Yeah. 70. It might have been the 76 peak season or the 75 peak season.
I think 75 but peak is 79, right? No. Oh god, my brain.
84.
80. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is that so hard? Yeah, 75, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, 82 and 83 maybe. I
was doing terrible
whatever.
Math.
Yeah. It'd be really useful if I just like opened up the DMs I have with Tack, but there was like an explicit window. I was like, okay, given the roster that we have, the people that we have, this is who's going to be on the roster each year, depth chart wise. This is applied TP levels of everybody in the league and what teams they're on. And I was like, okay, this is the seasons that Montreal are going to be peaking. If you're with us, we will be essentially at the total TPE level that LA is at for these 2 seasons. You can see very clearly how effective that is. Here's the teams that we'll be contending with. There's a slight edge there. Here's the role that you'll have. And I actually explicitly was like, the role that you have is very much going to be what Rich has with Adam in LA for these couple seasons. And that was a fun comparison to make now that we're having this talk. But so it's something I expect to have public even as a tool soon, because I think it's one of those things that is technically public information and everybody would get to it the same way, but it's not super accessible at the moment, which is like kind of what I've keyed in on as to a lot of the stuff that I'm producing these days.
Yeah. I know it's there's a bit of that I kind of get with the file work job. Of course, I don't have the ability really, or the tools to make use of it. But it's like this thing the stuff that I do as file work is all publicly accessible.
Yeah.
It's just that I have to look at it. Like I have
Yeah.
to every week look at what people are updating and trends among teams of like who's doing,
Yeah.
favoring certain attributes or that kind of thing.
hmm
Um,
I found the one that I sent to Tech. It was Montreal's peak is looking like 82 and 83. And that was as far out as I could project. It was 6 seasons from like a calendar year from when we were talking. But it was Montreal was looking at with Tech 23,000 TPE, 23.3, and that was within 100 of what LA was at for 78 and 79.
hmm.
And then 83, we were up in the mid 2400s or 24,000s, which was clearing most of the league at that point.
So with this, I guess this is not necessarily directly related, but do you also talk like tactics stuff, lines, that kind of thing with
Uh,
Montreal?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
It's um I wouldn't say it's ever been like my strongest point. I think there's easily a good handful to a dozen people that have a better grasp on FHM than me.
Hmm.
There's probably honestly even more. It's not been something that I've ever committed a ton of time to. I can theorize, and from a um from the perspective of like I've coached sports at a college level, team sports at a college level, and like I get the like I'm good with the concepts of like utilizing space and these mismatches, but like FHM is like kind of limited in how much flexibility you have with like telling a player that I want you to play in this space
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I want you to focus on these passing triangles, and that's not really something that you can do with FHM. So like as far as setting like schemes within the game, I'm average to above average, and like I'll have stuff to contribute over the next year for Montreal, but it's never been like my big contribution point, and I hopefully they're not expecting that of me, but uh I think that the team that we have now has a firm enough grasp on it, and it's enough of a copycat league, but it's not entirely. I think that I don't have any concerns about um, how Montreal's going to shape up in the FHM side, at least.
Okay. Yeah, mostly what I was interested in, related to FHM tax, was how closely or how at this stage, I was curious like where they're at with trying to set chemistries for future,
Oh,
because that would be my focus right now if I was Montreal. That would be 100% all I'm trying to do is
I think it'll be more of a thing next season.
next season. Okay.
I
You got the
don't,
76s.
yeah, I don't think it was a huge thing this season. Um, if you go back to the current roster, the 75s came up, and I think that yeah, it was double goalies. Uh Cal and Brick is a deep air, but Brick's playing journeyman and looking to move.
Hmm.
Um, so it was Cal and Rabid and Chevy, and I think like it's hard to project exactly who will be where, but I would imagine Chevy and Rabbit are getting time and chemistry together. And outside of that, I think everybody that's currently there isn't likely on the same line with anybody else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There is a bit of a weird mix at the moment.
So like, yeah, we're trying to build like chemistry with whoever Tack's gonna be with, like whoever his center is gonna be, but also like we're trying to figure out if somebody's gonna need to flip the D, and if that is, it's probably gonna be one of Roddy or CK, and so there's a little bit of ambiguity as far as what lines are gonna look like at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
So I imagine it's coming, but it's more of a next season when we have like four more active skaters going up that we're gonna really start prioritizing who's playing with who. 5 active skaters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
6. Yeah, 5.
It's yeah. That makes actually a lot more sense with the 76 class coming up. Should be able to fill in. I would think it gives you basically 2 lines you could kind of set
Yeah,
and forget for the foreseeable future.
yeah. So that's definitely a game plan. And it'll be some discussions of like um, who the centers are going to be, who, if anybody wants to be with anybody, and then what people are looking for their players to be,
Hmm.
because we're going to ensure that I guess we fit scheme wise the right types of players in repeat on the same lines. Like whatever scheme that we want to build towards, like we're gonna have a specific type of center, a specific type of left wing, and a specific type of right wing. Um, so making sure that everybody's getting to either prioritize being on the same line as the people that they want to be with, or being the player that they want to be, and then fitting everything together at that point.
Yep. Yep. Nice. We were. What did we get? We had a somebody had a question last week about the next team that was going to kind of explode on fantasy. It's not a 1-for-1 obviously, but like a
Yeah,
Tampa
like
who,
how Tampa
yeah,
did this season.
yeah, and that was my long term Montreal. Like
Oh yeah,
it's
but that's also still another like 6 months.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a ways out, but like they have the potential to, if the tactics are all there,
Yeah,
same thing that similar to like what LA and San Francisco have been these
yeah,
these past few seasons. Like
yeah. Like 79 is going to be marginally better than the season was for Montreal, and then 80. There'll be some picking up steam, but 81 is really like the season and a half before the window where it's really going to start kicking.
mhm.
Um, Atlanta is on a slightly earlier trajectory, and won't peak as hard, but they're I think a team that I would start to see. They're always like FHM good, but
Yes,
they're a
yeah.
team that I would expect to see start to be really effective next season and in season 80.
Hmm. I do not pay attention enough to other teams to so I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, right on. Oh wow, yeah, they are a lot younger than I realized in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a big, deep, like 73 to 75 stretch.
Yeah.
And then on 76, they have Michael as well.
I definitely thought they were older. Okay, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah, you got Kaya Amid, uh, President Shepix, Charlie, Bongo. Like they're stacked through there, but they're not as like centralized. Like they're going to have a longer window, but like they only get up to like 21 to 22,000 as opposed to Montreal's like 23, but
hmm.
they'll be relevant like a season earlier and a season later.
Yeah, there's seems like the way they've done it's been like kind of a smooth transition too.
Yeah, so like you look at like Jigglypuff and Billy Harrington who are like fantasy relevant
Mm.
at this point. They're as long as you like especially for like season 80, if you're able to key in on I guess who's going to be the like primary producers that they like how Jigglypuff and Harrington are right now, like that'll be a huge hit in fantasy.
Mm. Oh, actually have a question for you related to fantasy, so we can
Yeah.
hit that really quick. I also don't know how you are on time, so I don't if you gotta end up
No, no, I'm
running, let me
good.
know. Okay. 'Cause we're kind of running up on an hour here.
Yeah.
All right. It's actually Slicer. Wanted to know
Hmm.
with the updated fantasy tool, do you think it'll be easier for newcomers or harder for vets or both? Or
I think it'll be it'll obviously be easier for everybody. I think that it will like it making swaps more accessible to people and improving data visibility and how like more comfortable people are with making swaps and that they'll be good swaps will make fantasy more competitive throughout. Um, like right now, I think fantasy is more variable than it will be once the tools in use by more people. Um, because right now you're looking at everybody's picking 6 people, walking away, checking back in 3 weeks in maybe, seeing where they're at, and then like they say, okay, hopefully my guys have a good season. And some people will make swaps, and it's definitely still something that people engage with. But I think that having it more accessible is going to make everybody better, but making everybody better while not favoring new users or old users will make it more competitive because it's gonna cut some of the variance out, which I think is a net positive. Um, like cutting the variance out of fantasy TP is cool, and then it also allows for a little bit more skill expression if you're able to make better picks and variance is taken out of it. That's a positive for people that are good at fantasy. Um, so I think there's upsides in both regards, but taking it a little bit out of the dice rolling is something that I consider a plus.
Cool. I haven't actually even looked at the tool because I'm
Oh, you haven't?
no, I haven't played fantasy in close to a
Uh,
year, I think.
no, it's
Around a
it's
year.
actually sick.
Is it? Go there right now.
Yeah.
Where was it at? It was in the
I posted it
general.
in general discussion. Yeah,
There
yeah, that third one.
we are.
So like, if you like file, make a copy, it's obviously not going to do a whole lot now that we're
Yeah,
out
yeah,
of
yeah.
the season, but it will work for you next season if you end up using it.
I think I'll end up back in fantasy on my next player, but I'm just
Okay.
like I let's call it a tantrum. I threw a tantrum in with the changes. I was like, I don't like this anymore. I'm leaving. Also, FHM 8
Yeah,
is
FHM8's
the
a
swings are
thing for
insane.
sure.
Like, oh, anyway.
So you essentially just plug your username. Like once the
Oh, I
fantasy
see. And it
group is
populates.
set up, yeah. So you put in your username and the link to the fantasy index for that season. So like the big Google Doc
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
put out each season, you put both of those in, and it auto populates with your roster. And then once you're in the season, it takes every it takes every player and projects out their fantasy points remaining based on their points per game and games played. So, say like somebody's played like 5 less games, you know how many fantasy points they scored per game. So, you know who's actually performing better, and then you know how many points remaining to expect from every player. And so it'll list out the greatest gains if you swapped your lowest player and the highest option. Um, so like if you're expected to get like 150 for the rest of the season for say Jack St. Clair, and rest of season Piastri is expected to get 200, it'll list out like in that gain column, it'll list out 50 uh, points expected to gain from the swap. And then it gives you the stuff to copy paste into the index, and then it projects out like your score and everybody else's score for the rest of the season, like where you're projected to end up based on everybody's fantasy points, if they've used their swap or not, where it's at globally. So you know, like if you're checking on like day 10, what TP you're expecting to get if things repeat basically for the second half of the season,
Wow. This is
and then you can make a swap or see what everybody else is doing, and Yeah,
This is
it's
really good.
a pretty cool thing that was pulled together, I think.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, this is really cool. I like it a lot. Hmm. Okay,
But
well, I'm
yeah,
glad I have a copy now. Cool.
yeah. And then like it will like that's basically the file that you can use for ever. It won't update with what I've like when I update to like 2.2 or whatever. It won't
Sure.
get those updates, but I like next season you'll just update it with your username and the new index URL, and it'll take care of the rest.
Wow. Yeah, that's really really good. I really like that. Hmm.
But this falls into the category of like stuff that is technically accessible to everybody. Like it's all just index information
Yeah. Yeah.
and like stuff from the fantasy sheet, but it's so like if you're a primarily mobile user and you like especially back when like the bot was a thing and you'd like go into the bot channel and go like exclamation point F your username, you see, oh, I'm in fifth in fantasy, this sucks. And like you're like, okay, I need to make a swap, and you have to figure out who on your team sucks, and you have to look at the index and figure out who's doing well and then who's available. And it was like I had to do it on my phone at work once, and it was like not even like this level of work with like points remaining, but just figuring out who was available and who was good. It was like 3 or 4 minutes of work
Yeah. Yeah.
as a mobile user, and I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah, as a mobile user for sure. On desktop, it's not. It's obviously more work, and it's the kind of like you say with it's all publicly available. It's exactly the thing that I would do with just eyeballing stuff and head math. Same thing.
Yeah,
Just this is more correct, and I'm certainly
yeah.
better.
Yeah, so now instead you can see, okay, here's all the people available that are doing well. Here's how much I can expect to get from the swap if I make the swap. And here's all the teams that they're on and which swap makes the most sense. And you can do like based on like, okay, which team do I trust to not throw it away and which team like might get hot still. And it's a lot more
Do
intuition and skill and less work and less rolling the dice.
the projections, how do they factor in like strength of schedule, like that kind of thing? Or
No,
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 it's just okay.
not.
Okay.
I wish, but there's not.
Yeah, that's okay. I
It's
actually
not
kind of am
really.
glad of that.
Yeah, it's harder
That
to
would be
do
crazy.
that. It's like technically doable, but it's hard. It would really only be effective once you have enough um evidence from the current season, because like you can't
Sure,
really
sure.
do um how like fantasy points scored on a team until you have enough data points. So like starting like week 2, you can do it, um, but it never
Even yeah,
really.
yeah,
It would be hard and not super reliable.
yeah.
Um,
Especially with I guess the way the way the points swing in terms of like you know I don't know like a
yeah,
team like San Francisco is a prime example of like why it becomes difficult is because they when they beat teams they tend to kind of smash them.
yeah,
Um,
and like actually like something that would be decently useful that I might incorporate is games remaining against teams under
yeah,
500, under either under 500 or under 250 or like whatever metric, or like
yeah,
games against lotto teams remaining or something like that, where like you could say, okay, they've or like they've played this many games against bad teams and they have this many games against bad teams remaining. How accurate is this um points remaining expectation?
yeah.
Um,
Or even just indicating that the player has X number of games against bad
yeah,
teams versus another player that might have fewer or
yeah.
more or
So
whatever.
like that is something else that's visible that might get incorporated.
Mhm.
At some point, it becomes a bit of a uh, visibility and like
Yeah.
UI
Yes. 100%.
point, but it's definitely something that could be done and something that I've considered doing. It's relevant for sure, especially on
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the fantasy side.
Yep. Yep. For
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. I agree, Seven. Really well
Oh, he
said.
made it.
time
Sorry, I had
zones
some
got
of
him
this
though.
shit just come up really, really last minute. I think my brain thought 7 your time, not 7 my time.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, now we got to do another hour.
Yeah, it's true.
So anyway, that God, I don't know what to do now. This is weird. So hey, Adam, how you doing?
I'm good. You don't have to go another hour. I just
Oh
wanted
no. That was a joke. I mean, I would. That was
Yeah.
a joke. I mean, we're kind of winding down. So
Yeah.
if you want to hang out, feel free.
Yeah, I'll hang out for the whatever's left here.
Yeah. How you doing? Are you
Oh, yeah, getting by.
good? God, I don't have any way of trying to include you on stuff we talked about previous because it was very 7 specific. So
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, Rich appeased me for an entire hour and just wanted to talk about me.
I took a weekend off and just asked 7 like 3 questions and then hung out.
And then I talked for about an hour. Yeah.
Oh, all right. I got another one for you. This is from Gams. Actually, he wants to know how many shoes you have.
Running shoes. There are 20, somewhere between 24 and 27. And then sneakers. There's another 30, high 30s, I think.
Okay.
And then like 5 pair of dress shoes, a couple pair of boots. I guess if you count like my cycling shoes and a couple pairs of cleats and golf shoes, there's more. But yeah, the main numbers are like 20 something pairs of running shoes and like 40 pairs of sneakers.
Nice. That's quite a few. Do you have a favorite? I guess.
Ooh, in sneakers, like the ones I like the most are probably my Jordan 1 high tops. Like I have a couple different pairs and like they're like a classic shoe.
Yeah.
They look good in a lot of situations. I don't get to wear them much during summer and I don't frequently wear them to the office, but they're
You could though.
I do on occasion. And like some of my coworkers actually get like super excited about it. And found out that I was big into shoes and were not themselves, but they enjoyed it and probably live a little bit vicariously.
Yeah, even I'm not really much of a shoe guy, but even I have a pair of Jordan 1 lows. So. Like it's between that and like a pair of Chucks, like classic. You can wear them in many situations.
Yeah, they're ubiquitous.
Then similar to that, I have a pair. The one I wear to work a ton is actually the New Balance 650, which is it's like an old like it was originally a basketball shoe from the 80s, like the Jordan 1 was, but they recently brought it back. And I have a black and white pair that I wear to work a lot.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've definitely seen these around. Okay.
And they're not as flashy as some of the Jordan pairs. And so they're a little bit easier to wear to the office. Running shoes, I have so many.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could explicitly pick one favorite.
Plated or not plated?
For running?
Yeah.
Depends. All my race shoes are plated, and most of my
fair enough.
workout shoes are.
What does that mean?
So effectively, there's the highest end distance running shoes are pretty high amounts of foam in the midsole, and that is stabilized and stiffened by a usually carbon fiber plate, occasionally carbon fiber or glass rods, and occasionally a nylon plate to add rigidity and stability. And that improves
like that, especially in race, it gives you more bounce back.
Yeah, it improves running economy by like some, depending on the shoe, between like 1 and 3% over a normal shoe,
I
which
did
over
not know
a
that.
like a couple hour distance race is decently substantial.
Yeah.
Um, and then some, and most shoes that are used for like in like the professional world or like at a like race level are going to be like that, and they're are super lightweight materials. And um below that there's like some shoes that have similar qualities but aren't made with the like super high tech materials, like the lightweight materials, and those get used for like the track workouts and the training blocks, but they aren't used on race day. Um, and then there's like your Nike Pegasus and your general like Hokas and your super cushion shoes that you wear on a daily basis.
I was gonna say, what's your go-to? What are you putting miles on for your recoveries right now?
Uh, I my team is sponsored by New Balance,
Mm.
and I have I think 4 pairs of 1080s that I rotate between,
Nice.
and um, Asics does a lot of stuff in the local community, and I have 2 pairs of Nova Blasts as well.
Oh yeah. I do like a good pair of Nova Blasts.
Yep.
I thought
Troy just posted it as well in the chat.
yeah, one of my coworkers is really trying to convince me I need to buy a pair of Clifton 9s.
Okay.
And I've never, I mean, I've run Brooks and Saucony my entire life.
Okay. Yeah, the Clifton Solid, I ran in Clifton's almost explicitly through like the 20 teens.
Hmm.
I don't personally run in them. They're still a fine shoe. I know Roddy in Carolina and Montreal runs in them primarily. They rub on people's arches sometimes, but if like
That's what I've heard.
so if you have low arches, maybe not, but otherwise they're definitely fine. They're essentially just Hoka's spin on the New Balance 1080.
Okay.
I guess they're kind of spins off of each other at this point.
I was gonna say I've run in 1080s, so yeah, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, no, good shoe. And then workout shoes, I have entirely too many, and it's the bane of my girlfriend's existence because uh, don't ever, I don't run through them and like wear them out quick enough for how often I buy them.
You mean like a flat top, like a flat training shoe?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I've still got pairs of like Adios 6s from like 4 years ago. That like I still use and put miles on, but I don't. I have like just looking at my wall right now, I've got probably like 10, 12 pairs of like workout specific shoes. And I just keep buying more, and I just don't get rid of them.
It's crazy how much of a difference that makes. I stopped working out in like regular trainers and switched to Metcons fucking years ago, and that
Yeah.
it's astonishing the difference.
Wow. I have no idea what you guys are talking about. But sounds great. I love it.
It's dude, shoes are, especially for working out and running
Mhm.
and training. Shoes are you could do 2 hours on shoes alone.
Oh yeah.
Well, how about you guys got any upsets for the SHL playoffs?
Let me look at the
Likely,
draft
like what's the
quick.
most likely possible upset?
Ooh, I'm actually decently good with that.
Would say anything in the East.
I mean, yes, but
Yes.
um, the biggest coin flip one to me is Toronto Buffalo. And like I want Toronto to win and get over that hump. And like on paper they should. Like 80-point team versus 70-point team. Like they're good. They crush at home, but like
They have to face Toman.
I'm still, yeah, it's like of teams that like I would in general be concerned about, just out of like haven't shown the capacity yet. Toronto's like near the top of that list. And of teams that I would almost never bet against, Buffalo's at the top of that
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
Well, and I mean, and while it's a -1, I mean, it's still notable that they're operating in the playoffs at a negative goal differential. At worst, an even goal differential.
Yeah, but yeah,
Like that'll catch up to you against. I don't know. I mean, you're right. Betting against Buffalo never seems to go well.
yeah, and like Buffalo's only +10. That's like really not that big of a gap. But again, it almost feels like a pretty big coin flip, despite Toronto looking like they should be a little bit ahead.
It feels like the only team that feels comfortable in the East is Tampa, but even then, Hamilton has underperformed their TPE by a lot. Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
They've for sure underperformed.
Yeah. The big one for me is that Tampa cruises at home, but they feel more susceptible on the road, and I don't know if that's where you want to be as a top seeded team. Like top seed, yeah, you're going to like clean up your home games. That's to be given, but like I don't know, it feels a little bit like a house of cards. Like I want them to do well. Like there's a lot of people there that I like. Think very highly, obviously, of Dwight and Smith and ACAP and everybody there. And again, it's just another team that like you don't ever really want to bet against.
I mean, Hamilton's nothing like the team they were, but playoffs are just different.
Yeah.
I guess like rarely do we see, other teams wipe other teams out. Maybe in the first round you'll see a little bit of it.
I mean, yeah, you see it in the first round, but at the same time, like I don't know.
I still feel like, and Hamilton is just their TPE is not that bad, but they just ended up pretty bad in the standings.
Like Tampa got pranked by Atlanta last season, and obviously this is not as close of a matchup as that was, but like they lost. I don't know. Tampa's gone a while since they've seen like any playoff success.
Yeah.
So like I guess I'm thinking more of that than their I wouldn't say that they're really unreliable. They're just finally at the start of their window, but always a little bit concerned there. And then yeah, like the West feels hyper predictable,
except for Minnesota, New Orleans.
Yeah,
like,
but
if both teams could lose a series, that's the one that it would happen in.
Yeah, but also like that series is entirely meaningless outside of like a prediction task. Like neither one of those teams would beat Texas with 2 games in hand.
New Orleans should be good. Like they really should be.
Yeah, but they should have been good like a dozen times in the last like 2 calendar years.
Yeah.
They're whatever Buffalo is for never betting against them. Nola, honestly, Nola and Minnesota are, but mostly Nola is that on the opposite side.
Yeah.
Like I just can't trust them, and even if they do well this postseason, I'm not going to trust them next season.
Yeah, for sure.
Troy was asking in chat if we think anybody can stop Tampa.
Oh yeah.
Tampa.
I mean, they're good, but I don't.
Yes. I think that Tampa coming in as the 1 seed in the East is like. Do I think anybody in the East can stop them? Maybe Philly,
Yeah, yeah.
Like the Philly, Atlanta, and New England might pose a threat. But like if we're talking about if they're about to just run to the cup and win the cup, I don't.
I
I don't
wouldn't.
know how you can look at the West and think that Tampa can get through that.
I think it's fair to
Like,
say
and
they're the favorite, and I don't. I don't know, but yeah, I don't think it's like it's so cut and dry. Like, yeah, of course they're gonna. Maybe not.
Well, the East
yeah,
is always a bit of a dome, though, isn't it? I mean,
it's always one side or the other.
yeah. I mean, it is historically, at least in the last 10 seasons, has either been New England or literally anyone.
Yeah.
I think last week, talking to Luke, I don't remember specifically what we were talking about, but it was pretty clear to me that like in the playoffs, I wouldn't really feel that safe as any team in the East. Like, I don't know the the gap between teams doesn't feel that big.
No, it's definitely not.
No, anybody can beat anybody outside of like a couple of one-offs.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know. Anything else interesting to take away from the first round? How do you guys feel about the change to the playoff prediction bracket thing?
I have heard about that. I actually haven't looked at the PT yet. And I just opened up the thread when you asked about who was like what we thought about the matchups, and I have no idea what I'm reading right now.
It's
Let's take
weird.
a look at this. I haven't
Um,
looked at a PT in 6
so-
weeks. Let's take a look at this.
they, I don't. I just
Oh
don't.
my god.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
You have to start doing games like how many games each round is gonna go, but without knowing matchups, which is like, I don't know.
Oh, okay. So this
Oh.
it's like actually scored like
This is like the NHL's playoff bracket thing.
yeah, I was gonna say it's like the NCAA bracket where you get more points for
Oh,
correct
yeah.
later in the bracket.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
I just don't.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know why. Why? Like, I don't.
well, it certainly feels like turning this into a potential 15 TPE.
If you had like the
Uh,
perfect bracket, yeah.
It's unlikely.
Yeah. But I think most people are going to fall in like this 6 to 9 probably.
Probably. And they honestly probably built this based on like the past couple playoff predictions.
Yeah, probably.
Where-
This is
so,
definitely
like-
going to hit like a normal distribution curve.
Yeah. Which like I'm okay with. It's kind of cool. It's more interesting, at least from the first glance.
Yeah,
Like
it's certainly
nobody's
more
getting
engaging.
nobody's getting even 11 TP out of this, I don't think.
No, probably not.
Yeah, there will be like 2 people that get over 10.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody gets 15.
No,
No, it's
nobody.
certainly-
I don't think anybody will get
almost sure.
15 if you do this like for 10 seasons.
The
Statistically, I think someone has to get a perfect bracket if you do it for long enough.
But you have to get every series right in games played.
yeah, the
I don't
games
know,
played
but
makes
perfect
it.
brackets happen in March
I mean-
Madness every year.
No, they don't. That's the thing. Like, there's so many different decision points that like, there's almost no way. I'll do the math on this, but and post about it at some point. But there's like no way somebody actually hits all those.
No.
It's cool. I based on what I was seeing in locker rooms, I was like, oh no, what happened? But like, this is actually kind of fun.
My issue is I don't what was wrong with the like I don't know. It feels like such an unnecessary change, and I hate the idea of trying to guess the number of games because it's not a prediction, it's a guess. Like at that point,
Yeah,
I don't like that.
I like it in that. Imagine like you pick.
I'm
the
taking
right-
sixes all the way.
Well, yeah, but if you pick like if you pick the correct winner, but all of your other first round picks are wrong, in the old PT, you'd get a lot less, even though like you picked the winner of the finals correctly.
Yeah.
And like I like that that's a better rewarded. Especially in like a season like now where like it's entirely up in the air who wins. You could like 5 different teams could win the cup, and that's a positive. And like it's nice that like getting that correct is going to be impactful TPE wise.
Yeah, that's a good take on that. It certainly does make
It like
it's tough.
being able to correctly predict the winner of Seattle, or being able to correctly predict the winner of who makes it out of the West, out of Texas, San Fran, and LA, feels like a more impactful prediction than predicting that they'll each win their first round matchups. And I like
Yeah.
that this is scored in a way that rewards the people that make the correct choice at that level. Because getting bulk TPE out of picking the fact that like all these teams that are closer to lotto teams than playoff teams are, yeah, I like that you're not getting as much of a reward for just showing up. Like if you make the right predictions in the second, third, and finals, you're being better rewarded, and that's nice.
I guess the cynic in me asks if that is not worth. I mean, it's always going to be worth doing, like, from that perspective. But the cynic in me is like, but everyone's clicking into the fucking submitted responses and just picking one of those anyway.
Yeah, but like also I don't want to try and copy the submitted responses back and
You're
forth.
right. Now
on
it'll be
this.
harder to do it. Yeah.
But like, were they really clicking into the submitted responses, or were they just picking chalk all the way through?
You know.
I don't know. I like it in that the winner of like your office March Madness pool is generally picking the right teams in the Final Four, the right teams in the finals.
Usually.
And this feels like a riff on that, where the people getting the most TPE out of this are going to be the people that are correctly predicting the meaningful games in the conference championships and the finals. Is it going to be potentially too high variance? I could see it, especially like when, say, like a third of the league hits like 10 TPE and a third of the league hits like 2 TPE. I can see people being mad about that.
Yeah.
But
that's probably the biggest worry.
Well, because I was gonna say it'd be interesting to see the data from this in 10 seasons, but the problem with that is because people are just theoretically, at least it used to be, maybe this will change it, but because people were just pulling from other people's responses, you can't really look at that data because it's just going to be 3 fucking lines.
Yeah.
It's just 3 bars on a scatter plot.
Yeah. The distribution of like, if you take like the past responses and say, okay, if they did it under this point system that we want to incorporate, where would they land? Yeah, there'd be like spikes all over the place.
Yeah. If you had a way to do this like genuinely, truly random, I'd be really interested to see how it. I would assume it just normalizes because everything fucking normalizes.
Yeah.
Well,
also, I want to answer a question in the chat.
Yes.
For what reason does ASICS and Anitsuka have such a similar side design? It's because Anitsuka and ASICS are the same shoe company.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What else? Anything else? We're getting pretty late here. I should probably head out pretty soon.
Yeah, sorry, I stole another half hour.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. I just got things I was putting off, and I was like, I'll have plenty of time when I get done this. So, anything? Yeah, I do. I absolutely, James, especially you. Not as much as Troy, obviously, but. So, anything else? Anything else in chat? Anything from either of you guys? You guys got anything?
Yeah, Rich, what's your sign?
My sign? Oh, I'm a Leo.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, doesn't it?
I don't know anything about
Yeah,
astrology. Anytime anybody says their sign, I just
No
go,
clue.
yeah, that makes sense.
Mix it up every once in a while. Hit him with it. Oh, really? That's kind of
really?
surprising.
Okay, interesting.
That's funny. That's good. That's good. All right. Well, nothing else. Nothing else.
No,
Oh.
I'm good.
So,
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for everybody in chat. Appreciate it. Thanks for Seven and Adam for showing up. Appreciate that.
Yep, sorry I was late.
That's fun.
putting
Nah,
you-
you're good. You're good. We will maybe catch you next week. I don't know. I'll have to talk to Luke. But so long.